Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for another episode of Fuck, Marry,
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the FMK podcast. I'm your host, Davica.
I'm your host, Britt. Welcome to our show. I'll give you a little tiny spiel about what we do on our episodes in case you're just tuning in. We play the classic game Fuck, Marry, Kill, except we choose 3 subjects that we think would be fun to research so you can learn about history, true crime, that kind of thing. You have to choose which one you would fuck, marry, or kill. Today is my episode, but I really want to hear what Davica is drinking today. And if it's another Alantasia wine, I'm going to lose it.
It is not. So I saved one specially for this one. So I am drinking the Novelist.
Ooh.
It's actually a Napa Valley wine.
Yes.
It's from Cosentino Winery. It's one of my favorite wineries, and I had a couple bottles left in Portugal, and I'm drinking one of them now, the Novelist.
Oh, good memories. And you said that's next to the mustard in Napa?
Yeah, it's right next to Mustard. Although I checked their website and they're right now temporarily closed.
The Mustard is?
So no, the Cosentino Winery.
Okay.
So hopefully it's just like a seasonal thing and they'll open up because they're fantastic. So
yeah, maybe.
How about you?
I know a lot of restaurants will like close for a week or 2 out of the year just to do like a super cleaning. So hopefully that's it. But
okay. Maybe that's what it is.
I'm in LaPorte, Indiana, by the way. I'm in my brother-in-law's studio again, Studio 78. By the way, thank you to Jason for mixing our sound for us. That's why we don't sound like shit ever. Well, you never know.
Yes, thank you, Jason.
But I forgot to bring a wine for this episode recording. So I stole one of his mango cart beers. So I had to do a beer today. But it's actually really light and delicious if you like mango flavor, which I do.
I love mango. Yeah.
So it's a really good summer beer. It's a mango wheat ale. So
cool.
We're not mad at it.
Not mad at all.
So today is my episode. I'm really excited about it. It actually kind of coincides with my last episode that I did about evil doctors and nurses. They kind of overlap a little bit. But my subject this week is anti-heroes.
Ooh, yeah. I like that a lot.
Historical figures that we only saw as heroes for the most part, or the opposite, that were villains and we never saw as heroes. So
are we going to play Taylor Swift at the end of it?
Oh yeah, we should.
Yeah.
We'll appeal to our Gen Z listeners a little bit more.
There you go.
So these are anti-heroes. I was inspired by this subject because I'm such a nerd. I used to throw Dexter parties at my old Wrigleyville apartment in Chicago. I loved that show. And that's like a classic anti-hero storyline. Dexter.
I've never seen it.
Oh, really? Dexter.
Yeah, so I should. I've heard great things.
It's good. There's a couple of seasons that are slow and like just don't even bother watching the last season because it's terrible. But it's a show about a blood spatter analyst who works at a police station, but he's actually a serial killer, and he only kills other serial killers. So he tries to like sort of eradicate other bad guys only.
Love it.
Yeah. So it's a good concept. I think it's cool. But these are non-fictional anti-heroes. First one up, Henry Heimlich. You know who that is.
Like the Heimlich maneuver?
He's the man who like founded the Heimlich maneuver that we use. A lot of people use to this day. I did find out that you're not technically supposed to in certain scenarios, which I did not know. I learned a lot researching it, but I will get into that in a bit. So he saved thousands and thousands of people, and he still is to this day. But his history, he was born Henry Judah Heimlich in Delaware in February of 1920. He became a thoracic surgeon and a medical researcher. He went to medical school and got his medical degree from, I think it's called Weill Cornell Medical College in 1943. After med school, he actually served with the U.S. Navy in China during World War II. So he was in the depths of it. Yeah, he's done a lot. He was in charge of taking medical care of military personnel, but he actually also on the side helped a lot of civilians in the town that he was assigned. Which is nice. Yeah. During his service, he claimed he developed a cure for something called, this is going to sound bad, chlamydia trachomatis or trachomatis. I'm not sure how to say it. It's not the traditional chlamydia we would think of. It's a bacterial infection of the eyelids, which can cause blindness and glaucoma. and it was prevalent in Asia and the Middle East. It's the third leading cause of blindness in the world after cataracts and glaucoma.
Even now?
Mm-hmm. His solution sounds so weird. His solution was to mix shaving cream with ground up antibiotics, and apparently it worked. So
Not okay.
we've modified it since then, but this was sort of, I think, back in the day when, he was trying stuff. So a couple more of Henry's discoveries. He invented it's called a chest drainage flutter valve, which is also called the Heimlich valve. So he was just up in these streets slapping his name on everything. He loved putting his name on stuff. He claimed that he saw a Chinese soldier die from a bullet wound to the chest during his service. And that was his inspiration for this flutter valve. But hilariously, his medical assistant in China that was also serving was like, yeah, no, he didn't do that. He never saw that.
Got it.
So I don't know what the truth is. These are all claims, obviously. But the valve he did design allows air and blood to drain from the chest, in order to allow a collapsed lung to re-expand, which is kind of cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it did save the lives of hundreds of American soldiers during the Vietnam War.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty cool. Then we'll talk a little bit about the Heimlich maneuver now. I found this super weird, but from 1976 to 1985, the American Heart Association and the American Red Cross actually taught people to perform a series of what they called back blows to remove objects that were blocking someone from breathing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, love a good back blow. I'll shut up. That was disgusting.
It took me a second to get it.
I'll leave. So the back blows were promoted during this time as a first resort to save someone that's choking, and the Heimlich was promoted as the second. Then in 1986, just after that, Heimlich was then the first thing that was recommended, and don't do back blows at all. Then in 2005, so we're a little bit more modern now, the American Heart and the Red Cross downgraded the use of the Heimlich maneuver, and then they went back again to doing back blows. So say back blows one more time.
Yeah.
But here comes the anti part of his hero. In 2006, the Heimlich maneuver was downgraded on paper, like I said, by the Red Cross and American Heart Association, because Henry had promoted this theory that the Heimlich should be used for drowning victims too, and not CPR.
To get the water out of them or something?
Apparently that was the concept, and that no one should use CPR anymore. Yeah. Yeah. His own son ratted him out for this. He said that his dad, Henry, was using fake case studies to prove this theory. But it sounds like...
So he's egotistical for sure.
Sounds like he was just trying to get his name on everything, like I said. This is all alleged, so it's not like, But his own son said that, so... Pretty interesting.
Yeah, pretty damning.
Yeah. Because of this, the Heimlich is now just called abdominal thrusts. Like we kind of call it the Heimlich, but on paper, if you look at the American Red Cross and the American Heart Association, it is now just called abdominal thrusts.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. So joke's on you, Heimlich, I guess. But we still call it Heimlich.
Backfired.
Yeah. So today, this is not medical advice, first of all. Don't listen to this podcast. If anyone is choking, do what you know what to do. But I read that today 5 back blows and 5 abdominal thrusts are recommended by the Red Cross to save a choking victim. So that is the current, standard of what we should do. But this does vary for children, and it also depends on whether the victim is conscious or unconscious.
Sure.
So definitely look up, the different scenarios and what you should do. Just as a rule of thumb, don't take any advice from this podcast.
Yeah, 100%.
Generally.
Especially not medical, but in general. Yeah.
They're like, Brittany told me to do back blows. There's another black mark on Henry's name was that he decided that the body's immune system could be stimulated enough to cure diseases like AIDS, cancer, and Lyme disease, which I'm sure was very exciting to people at the time. He did not come up with this theory, but he definitely advocated for it. It's called malaria therapy, and it was used to cure the STD syphilis until the early 1900s, and it actually worked. So they would inject people with malaria, and that would get rid of the syphilis, and and then they would have to get rid of the malaria as well. So
that's so interesting.
Yeah, the idea of it was that injecting malaria parasites to a patient would cause fever and super high body temperatures, which would reduce symptoms and cure the disease. Then
Okay.
And then afterwards, once the patient was quote unquote cured, they had to receive anti-malarial drugs to get rid of it after about 10 to 15 fevers over the course of a few weeks. So this wasn't just like one injection of it. It's like keep giving them fevers until it's gone. But the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said absolutely not. This is super dangerous and possibly deadly, and there's zero proof that it works.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my professors had malaria, like not when he was teaching, but when he was doing like his research, like when he was a grad student and stuff.
Yeah.
And he was like, he almost died. I mean, it was horrible.
Terrifying. So yeah, that will get you for sure.
Yeah.
So, but apparently they did use it for syphilis. And he's like, yeah, it cures all these other diseases too. But according to a 1991 CDC report, the practice of malariotherapy for treating Lyme disease has been emphatically discouraged because there have been no controlled, well-designed studies showing that this approach is effective, and because of the severe morbidity associated with malaria infection. So, after being told not to do this because malaria is more deadly than some of the things he was trying to cure at that point, Henry just then went to Mexico and China and continued injecting patients with malaria to try to prove his point. And he claimed it all worked, but there was no paperwork to show that. And he would never, when he was asked about it, he would not talk about it in detail. He'd just be like, oh, it works. So,
wow.
Yeah. Many patients became immune to the anti-malaria drugs after all of the induced fevers. So then the malaria could not be cured. And he potentially killed like a lot of people by doing this.
Yeah.
We don't know. I couldn't find it in any information, like how many patients he ended up injecting and trying this with, because it was all kind of under wraps.
And I mean, if he's going to other countries too, it's like we might not be able to get their records.
Correct.
And
yeah. He saved a lot of people with his Heimlich maneuver, et cetera, but he may have hurt more people by advocating the Heimlich maneuver for drowning victims. And he also definitely hurt more people if he was injecting this malaria treatment into several other people. Henry died of a heart attack in 2016. And that is the story of Henry Heimlich. That's your first choice.
Wow. 2016. So when was he born again?
He was born in, I know I said it, but I forgot.
Yeah, I forgot.
1920.
Wow. So he lived a long time.
Mm-hmm. He had a long life.
Yeah. He started off so cool when you first described him.
Yeah, Heimlich, fuck yeah, saving a bunch of people. And then you're like, ooh.
Yeah. Oh, he was a total narcissist.
Yeah, the other two, you'll be the same way. Anyway, the next one up is named Charles Romley Alder Wright. Charles was born in September of 1844 in Southend, Essex. When he was a boy, he had a disease of the hip, which caused him to be disabled. He did continue, though. He graduated with his Bachelor of Science in 1865 and worked as an assistant to a man named Henry Roscoe doing research on vanadium. Vanadium is a hard, silvery, malleable, conductive, and insulating metal. It's a metal. Today, it's mainly used to produce specialty steel alloys and some aluminum alloys. It was also used at one point in the chassis of the Ford Model T, which I thought was kind of cool, and a lot of French race cars it was used in. So, Wright was later employed by the Runcorn Soap and Alkali Company. No idea.
Sure.
But after that, he moved to London and worked at several hospitals there and then earned his doctorate of science. While he was in London, he published a lot. He published on subjects like opium, alkaloids, the discovery of morphine, alkali manufacturing, and iron smelting. He was also a founding member of the Royal Institute of Chemistry. So he was super smart and
cool.
accomplished and, did a lot of research that helped people. A few more really cool things that Charles discovered were aluminum antimonide. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I did not look it up, but it can be used in gamma radiation detection. So that's very useful. Yeah, in sort of dangerous situations. He also did a ton of research into alternatives to morphine. So morphine was very addictive. It is very addictive. And he was trying to find a way for patients to get pain medication without having these horrible addictions that came along with it. This is where the bad comes in. This is where the anti comes into his hero. While he was looking for a non-addictive alternative, he experimented combining morphine with a lot of acids. One of the concoctions were boiling anhydrous morphine alkaloid with acetic anhydride. So I'll explain that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
You're like, what are these words?
Of course I know what that does. Yeah.
Anhydrous means not containing water. An alkaloid is an organic compound that contains at least one nitrogen atom. And acetic anhydride is a colorless liquid that smells like acetic acid and reacts with moisture in the air. So I'll repeat the sentence. The concoction was boiling anhydrous morphine alkaloid with acetic anhydride. So I don't know if that clears it up at all. Anyway,
Sure.
He was mixing shit,
Yeah.
He's a mixologist. So he combined.
Now I understand.
He combined these ingredients and cooked them over a stove for several hours. He ended up creating a more potent morphine. Unfortunately, it's called diamorphine. This is also known as heroin. Charles Romley Alder Wright is the father of heroin.
That's how heroin started? Oh, wow. I had no idea.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know how this idea or his concoction got published or anything like that. But after his death, it was many years later, Bayer Laboratories continued to test heroin after he had discovered it and marketed it as an analgesic and a sedative for coughs. So, but once they realized it was more addictive than morphine, which is complete opposite of why it was, created, Bayer stopped production in 1913 of heroin. But
wow,
he can be thanked for heroin. Good job, Charles. Old Chuck.
Interesting.
Yeah. So his intentions were technically good, but somehow it got out there. He made a concoction that was way worse and way more dangerous, and it still continued on. So that's Charles. Third one. This is going to be an opposite kind of story. So we know this person as a villain, an absolute villain, but he had some heroic qualities to him in the beginning. This guy is Jim Jones. You know who that is? Yeah.
No.
Oh, I'll tell you a little bit about him.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. I said, as though I did know, but I don't actually.
Okay, great. Yeah. Love to hear it. I will tell you about him. Perfect. James Warren Jones was born in Crete, Indiana. Hoosier.
Oh, represent.
Yeah, in May of 1931. His father was a disabled World War I veteran, and his dad's military pension was not enough to support their family. So their family was evicted from their home for failing to make payments, and they had to move into a shack that had no plumbing or electricity. So they were really down and out.
Rough.
His father's disability also caused marital problems with his wife, and it was said that Jim's mom, his wife, had zero maternal instincts and frequently neglected her family. So it was rough.
That's rough.
Yeah. His father was frequently hospitalized as well due to his disability. So Jones was almost always alone as a child in the shack. A lot of times Jones would be found just wandering the streets naked. And a lot of female residents in this little town around his shack would take him in and help him with food and clothing and sort of like help
Yeah.
him, which is nice, even though it's a sad story. He found it
Yeah.
really hard to make friends. So naturally, he would visit casket manufacturers for fun and hold mock funerals for roadkill that he would find.
Wow.
Wow is right. I find it hard to make friends, so I hang out at funeral homes. The fuck?
The local casket maker.
I know, it's very exciting there. He also hated sports because he detested losing. He was a sore loser. No wonder you can't make friends. And he was just
Seriously.
Yeah. He was also, when he was in sports, he was disturbed at the treatment of Black players at the games, which influenced his very strong aversion to racism, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
This did not go over well with his dad. His dad was a member of the Ku Klux Klan.
Of course.
So,
wow.
Talk about disagreeing with your dad. But good for Jim.
Seriously.
Yeah. Especially back in the day when it was like super popular to be racist.
Yeah. And usually the whole apple doesn't fall far from the tree and all that stuff. So to defy both society and that,
very brave.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. When Jones was a bit older, he started being very interested in Pentecostalism and preaching. Pentecostalism is just, if anyone doesn't know, it's a type of Christianity that emphasizes baptism or repenting of sins and accepting of Jesus Christ as their personal Lord and Savior. These Pentecostalists also think that the Bible has 0 errors and should be taken at its word. In the 50s, there was also a movement that Jones was involved in, and it was called Latter Rain, Latter Rain. So the Latter Rain movement in the 50s was basically a post-World War II revival of Pentecostalism. It became popularized again, led by a person named Billy Graham. It emphasized and supermarketed Pentecostalism and promoted fastings, prayer, and there were also a wave of people speaking in tongue and claiming ecstatic experiences and like huge miracles that happened as a result of their belief in Jesus and the Bible. So this movement caused that type of religion to become popularized widespread. Jones was also heavily influenced by a man named Reverend M.J. Devine, whose full name was Reverend Major Jealous Devine.
Jealous,
naturally, yeah. What's your middle name? Jealous.
Jealous.
I'm like, what? Did I read that right? Anyway, I would love for my middle name to be Jealous.
Seriously, I was just thinking that.
Anyway, sidebar. Devine founded the International Peace Mission Movement and basically took a small church of people, promoted himself as God, Reverend Jealous Man is God, and developed a huge multiracial and international church. Because of Jones' affiliation with Devine, Jones became a huge civil rights activist and opened the People's Temple in Indianapolis in 1955. He was ordained minister here and preached tolerance to differing views, which is great.
Yeah.
In Indianapolis in 1960, so this is 5 years later, he was appointed director of the local Human Rights Commission and did a lot for racial integrations in churches, restaurants, a lot of public places around Indianapolis. So he was very influential there. He and his wife, Marceline May Baldwin, adopted several children. Some were Native Americans, some were Korean, some were Black, and he had one biological child with his wife, Marceline, and another was some lady named Carolyn Layton, who was one of his followers. So, stand up guy.
All right.
He called his family his rainbow family, which is kind of cute if you don't look at all the other stuff.
Yeah.
10 years later I guess it's 5 years later, in 65, Jones moved his temple from Indianapolis to San Francisco and developed huge political connections in San Francisco. And he did a lot of charitable things for his community and even became a chairman of the San Francisco Housing Authority Commission. So he was gaining more and more power and doing good things for his community, apparently. Here's where the ante sets in for him. Reports started coming in about Jones and his rejection of traditional Christianity. So he had slowly started promoting something called apostolic socialism, which some say he coined that term himself. I looked it up. Apostolic socialism promotes that everyone be of the same heart and mind. None of their possessions were their own, and they had to share with anyone in need. They believed that God's grace worked in them, and so there should be no people in need. The kicker, though, is that Jones also, this is very reverend jealous of him, he also started making claims of his own divinity, which is ick. Yeah.
Always has to go there,
I
right?
know. Fucking jealous.
Yeah. Yeah. So jealous.
The stuff that Jones was preaching did not go over well at all in America, in San Francisco. So Jones decided, to build yet another temple in Guyana and convinced a ton of people to move there with him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty soon, though, reports started also coming out that people were being held in Guyana against their will, and a lot of human rights were being abused. So total weird 180. In 1978, a U.S. representative named Leo Ryan actually traveled there out of concern for these people that he was hearing are trapped and being held against their will, and bad things were happening to them. So he traveled there with some former members of Jones' group that were back in San Francisco to investigate and check on everybody. When they arrived, Ryan and 4 other people were gunned down and murdered when they arrived by Jones' people. So Jones' followers came out and shot them.
Yeah.
Then I'm assuming that it was out of fright of retaliation. Jones ordered a mass murder suicide of all the men, women, and children living at his compound.
So messed up.
He had them drink something called Flavor Aid that was laced with cyanide.
Drink the Kool-Aid, right?
Yep,
That's where it came from.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Drink the Kool-Aid, but I guess it was Flavor Aid back then. So we morphed it a little bit. We marketed it better.
Yeah.
So sadly, 909 people died. It's a lot.
909?
304 of them were children.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So yes, that term drink the Kool-Aid came from Jim Jones, basically meaning follow the leader no matter what they tell you to do.
Yeah.
Drink the Kool-Aid, believe what they say. And that is the story of Jim Jones. Yes.
Okay.
So we have Henry Heimlich. We have Charles Romley Alder Wright, and we have Jim Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you fuck? Who would you marry? And who would you kill?
That's a really good one. All right, let me think.
So we have malaria guy that also saved choking victims. We have morphine guy that was trying to find a safer morphine and invented heroin instead. And we have Jim Jones, who was very, integrated for integration and civil rights, but he
killed a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, he killed his entire cult.
So, here's the thing. I'm so glad that he was for integration and that he stood up against his dad and everything. But at the end of the day, he killed nearly 1,000 people. So he's got to go.
Yeah, Jim Jones.
I mean, he was a little too over the top. So Jim Jones is out. Mm-hmm. He's killed.
Mm-hmm.
So here's where it gets tough because heroin has created so many problems for so many people.
Mm-hmm.
But this dude was genuinely trying to do good. So him as a person, and it wasn't the Purdue Sackler family or something where they were just trying to make profits and they knew that it was addictive and they put false information. He was just experimenting and he was actually trying to make things better, but it ended up being heroin. Then you have the other dude who's this total, egomaniac, and he did kill a lot of people, but not nearly to the scale that heroin did.
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
Yeah.
It's if I could go back in time, would I kill this one dude? It's like all those time travel movies, basically, right? So it's all right, I'm going to take it as a person value.
Okay.
And instead of I'm going to interpret it that way, and I'm going to kill Heimlich especially since now we don't even call his maneuver the Heimlich and we'd rather slap
Abdominal
somebody on the back. So yeah, the abdominal
Yeah.
thrust. So
Generic.
I'm killing Heimlich, or not killing, I'm fucking Heimlich, and then I'm marrying the heroin dude.
Okay. Those are good
Sounds
answers. I son of a bitch, I agree with you again.
Yeah, there we go.
I would kill Jim
Sure.
Jones because, yeah, cheers. He was obviously had bad intentions from the beginning,
Mhm.
right off the bat. Obviously not for integration and civil rights, but he had some darkness in him. You can even see when he was a kid that he was like going to, making funerals for roadkill, and he has something upstairs that was not right.
Totally.
And he really drilled it home. He had cult followers, which is not an easy feat, and it's a long-term con that he wanted.
And he killed children. You know what I mean?
That's so fucked up.
It's a trump card.
Yeah. Henry Heimlich, he's just a little shit. Like, he lied about his case studies so he could keep trying whatever he wanted to try, and I can only assume it's in hopes of slapping his name on more stuff that he said works. And
what's so sad is that of all those names, I mean, you remember the last guy because yes, what he did was a travesty, but the most common household name of those three is Heimlich, right?
Yeah.
So like it kind of worked too, which makes me even more mad at him.
I know, you got to call it abdominal thrust from now on. Listeners, it's abdominal thrusts. No more Heimlich shit.
We're canceling Heimlich.
He was an asshole.
You heard it here now.
Yeah. I mean, do what the Heimlich does, but call it abdominal thrust. Don't
cancel the maneuver, the person, the name.
Again, do not listen to us for any sort of advice about anything across the board, except our choices in wine. But then Charles Romley Alder Wright, I could not find how. I know he experimented and had good intentions of finding an alternate. I couldn't find that he promoted this heroin once he discovered it. He probably wrote papers on it, and that's how it became known to other people. But nothing ever said that he made it in mass and he didn't give it to people.
Yeah. You said Bayer, right?
It really
was selling
sounded
it, so he wasn't an owner. So
yeah, it really sounded like Bayer was actually the villain in his story.
Yeah,
they claimed they didn't know though that it was more addictive than morphine and stuff like that. So I don't know that. I don't know
Which
if
makes
they were
sense.
just
They stopped. It was early. I mean, people didn't know, so
they did stop. So once again, we agree.
We agree. So listeners, if you disagree, hit us up.
Yeah.
Right on our Instagram,
know.
DM us, whatever.
Yeah. Show us your abdominal thrust and don't show us your, what is it called? Back. What do I call it?
Back blow.
Don't do any back blows though.
Well, if somebody's choking, you should do them. But yeah.
Anyway, thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.
So listeners, let us know what you would like to hear about. Any subjects that you have ideas on. We love to hear it. Also, give us a 5-star review if you feel so inclined. If you don't, just don't give us a review at all.
Then just ignore it.
Yeah.
And follow us if you like us so that you get updates.
Yeah. We love to hear from you. And thanks for tuning in. Until next time.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.